Today, I want to talk to you about job searching. Make sure you're positioned for 2025. Recently, I have been distributing my 10 by 10 job search formula. I put together this booklet that I think will really help you look at the 10 key aspects of job searching. What I think are the 10 most important success factors. If you have not grabbed this booklet yet, let me show you what it looks like. It is a PDF that really breaks down the different areas and gives you a chance to make an assessment of how effectively you're doing it based on some guidelines that I give you. So there's an assessment up top, which is really nice. And then toward the back, there's this grid that addresses each of the 10 areas, what I think are the common mistakes that people make, and then what I would rather you do. So if you haven't had a chance to grab that recently, please feel free to take it. It's free. Today we're going to go through 10 of those steps. I want to call out a few of the biggest mistakes that I think you're going to make along the lines of each one of them, and then what I would like you to do instead. Cool? Here's the 10 tips. So I want to talk about 10 aspects of the search. I want to talk about the mistakes you're going to make. So we'll start with the mistakes, and then I want to lead with the pro tip. Number one, and I just can't believe how many people don't do this. And for illustrative purposes, 2 days ago in the evening and last night in the evening, I did boot camp or case studies with a couple of individuals who were massively successful, except that they both talked about one of the biggest mistakes they made, or the biggest trouble they had, was figuring out what they could do. A lot of things, but figuring out what they wanted. And instead of doing this first, they started searching, pulled resume together, started interviewing, only to realize they were going through their approach half-cocked. So number one, biggest and most critical step, because it sets the whole tone for your search. It's like the drive in golf. It sets up the whole hole, okay? Is you've got to know what you're looking for and what makes you happy. Now, I want to be really specific here. I'm not talking about, well, I want to work for this company and I want that job and that's going to make me happy. There are actually a lot of different organizations. There are a lot of different job types. You might want to open up your own business. You might want to work for an organization, just a different organization. You might want to change careers. What you think might make you happy might not actually make you happy in reality, and you need to do this from the ground up. It's not I'll know it when I see it. I've seen too many people make major mistakes in their decision-making processes and the choices that they've made in their career because they didn't know before they started what success looked like as it relates to the environment that they're going to thrive in, putting themselves in a position that surrounds themselves with all of the things, and things could be people, it could be the environment, it could be physical location, it could be the type of work, it could be the type of resources, it could be many, many different variables. But you need to know what is going to make you successful and what is going to make you happy. And if you don't go through this exercise, I guarantee you there's absolutely no way to know for sure if you're making a good choice. It's all based on hope, and hope is not a strategy. It's also not a very good plan. So what do I mean by your criteria? Well, what a lot of people do is they think they know what will make them happy. This is mistake number one. Or they just feel like, well, if I can work for that type of organization, or if I could have that type of job, without truly understanding all the parameters. Or they're going into an organization, they're interviewing, and on the surface, everything looks great, but they're not asking the right questions or getting the right information, which means they have blind spots. There's something called the spotlight effect when you're making a decision. Basically, that's a fancy psychological term for only the information that you have is the information you're using to make that decision, when there's so many other things that you don't know. So you're deciding with incomplete information. And that's what a lot of job seekers do. You don't ask a lot of questions. You don't ask the right questions. You don't dig deep enough. What identifying your criteria will do for you is it'll actually give you a list of aspects for you to know, I want these conditions, I want these parameters, I want these type of people, I want this type of culture. I want a big company, a small company. I need a certain amount of compensation, Maybe benefits are more important to me. Maybe I want to travel. Maybe I don't. All of these things that make you happy, you need to be able to investigate them. And if you don't have them, you're going to be making a decision without all the information. And he who has the most information at least makes an educated decision. So if you want more on this, I released a video a while back called How to Start Your Job Search in the Right Place. I talk about your happiness factors. I talk about a number of other things, but you got to do this first because this drives the second part of what you do is actually the investigation process. So a lot of you come to the shows or ask me online and you say, what are good questions to ask an employer? And technically what I want to say to you without just giving you an answer is, what do you need? What do you want? Now, there are questions that I would ask any employer because I want to understand financial stability. I want to understand their strategy. I want to understand if they're a market leader. If they're not a market leader, what are they going to do to become one? Or what are they going to do to better position? I want to know, am I working in a strategic arm of the organization? There's general questions that I would want to ask just to understand the overall health of a company. But those questions, just because it's a great company, doesn't mean it's a great company for you. And a lot of people join great companies that are not really a good fit for them. Because why? Because they didn't do this. Self-aware people always put themselves in position to succeed by surrounding themselves or creating an environment that they thrive in because they know themselves well and they don't sacrifice this. They achieve high goals because they're self-aware. People who lack self-awareness, which is 85% of the people that walk the planet, don't do this. So when you get into the investigative part, you should have loads of questions. And these questions should start with, what is it that I want? I want a boss that behaves a certain way. Maybe you need somebody that you want to mentor you, or maybe you need somebody you want to leave you alone. Any which way, whoever you work with, you want them to always have your back. There's certain things about the boss. There's certain things about your teammates. There's certain things about the physical location of the company, the commute, how much travel, whether the organization is going to be investing in its people, in you, in your training, what you're going to do, how you're going to contribute, all of these other things. So how important they are to you is going to determine which questions you ask to investigate. Every time you investigate a company and every time you ask a question, you're always looking for two things. Is this a good company? And is this a good company for me? Just because it's a good company for you might also mean it's not a stable place. How many people out there have actually taken a job that they loved, but the company fell apart? Or how many people joined an organization they thought they would love, but the role was really bad or the environment was really bad? Okay, now, when you get into the investigative part, by the way, this is step one. This is step two. You do not put your resume together first. You figure out how to evaluate the employers that you're ultimately going to target, which is what you should be doing before you put the resume together. If you can't come up with 50 questions, you making a good career choice is blind luck. It truly is. And there's no reason you can't come up with 50 questions. Why? Because when you grab this book for a few bucks, I give you 75 great questions to ask before you take any job. So there's no reason you shouldn't be able to align your questions to your criteria. People in the job search coaching program that I mentioned earlier, I give them a spreadsheet to start this process. It has 86 rows in it, meaning it breaks down all the most popular happiness factors and criteria and all the sub-criteria and all the ways that they should be investigating those things. You need to make sure that you are armed and ready, and you do this before you send a resume out so that when somebody says, hey, this is great, can I talk to you tomorrow? You say, yeah, I just need like 20 minutes to brush up on who you are and what your company's all about, because I'm all ready, because I know my questions, I know what I'm looking for, I know the environment I thrive in. Show of hands, who doesn't have this? Who doesn't have this? Who doesn't have the self-awareness stuff? Who doesn't have the questions? Who struggles with, well, I'm not sure what to ask? There's no reason for you to do that. Give me a show of hands in the chat. Hi there, Vasu. Show hands. All right, I know we're on a delay. All right, third thing. Once you know your direction, once you know your criteria, once you know your path, it's about marketing you. Now, your resume is not a work history document. This is pitching you part one. The next card's going to be pitching you part two. Your resume does not equal your work history. You do not need to list every single thing that you did every day from the moment you were 22 years old and you had your shiny new degree, or maybe you were 18 and you rolled out of high school, till you started working. No one cares. What they care about is, how are you going to help me? Do you care that I put awesome estimating models and client and account exec methodologies together to grow a portfolio of clients? No, you don't care about that. You care about me helping you with your job search or maybe your leadership development. So your resume is about them, not you. Your career profile is about them, not you. Your career highlights are about them, not you. Your professional work experience is about them, not you. But what a lot of you do is you want to talk about everything under the sun that you can do, and it creates a real problem in marketing you, selling you, the storytelling narrative, and helping people understand who you are and how their lives are going to change because you're going to work on their team. So employers are like, they're people, right? They're not companies. They're people who hire you, right? Companies don't hire you. Systems really don't hire you. People hire you. People give people jobs. People want to know how their lives and their businesses and their companies and their teams are going to change as a result of hiring you. They buy transformation. They don't buy features. What a lot of people do is they try to stack their resume with the skills because they think that the skills are what get interviews, which isn't true. And then you're going to tell me, well, Andy, don't I need to have the right keywords because I need to put my resume into the applicant trashing system and I need a snowball's chance in hell that somebody will actually see it because I've stuffed so many times these particular words that they seem to want to hear that I have these skills. No. So first off, that's a bad way to job search. Secondly, that's not actually what makes them want to talk to you. It's the impact you made as a result of doing something you did. So when you put your resume together, don't think backwards, think forwards first. What problems do they have? What goals do they have? How can I change their lives, the target employers, the target bosses, the target teams that I want to go into? How can I showcase? It's like the news of you, right? And news needs to be newsworthy, not every single thing that you did every single day. So think forward. So when you're pitching you on the resume, make sure you're designing a resume that is forward-leaning based on the employer's goals and the employer's problems. Next thing is when you pitch your resume to them, it's about them, not you. How are you going to change their lives? You can use evidence of the past to illustrate that I was able to do it for them. This is what I'm going to be doing for you. But you need to know a couple of things in order to pick the right historical impacts, skills, facts, experiences, whatever it is you're going to shine in your, whether it's a cover letter that you're going to attach into the applicant trashing system, or whether it's a cover letter or an email you're going to send with your resume, which you know is my favorite way to do it if you follow me. I like boss hunting. I like teammate hunting. I even like recruiter hunting and HR person hunting. I don't like systems. They're not a great way to get a job. So make sure that you talk about how their life is going to change. If you're wondering how to do that in a cover letter, I give them away free. Number 5, when you search, big mistake that most people make is they go into the applicant trashing system. If you're wondering what the applicant trashing system is, it's the online career portal, or it's a third-party application service or an aggregator like Indeed.com or Career Builder or whatever. You're searching for jobs on their site, or the job listing on any corporate website. Company XYZ says, this is where our careers are. These are where our open jobs are. That's the applicant trashing system. That's a system. It's not a human. Even though a human had to load some stuff into it, you spending a half an hour trying to get your resume formatted, uploaded, sent in, tailored, attach the cover letter, type out your work history, and all the nonsense that you go through usually falls on deaf ears. It actually doesn't usually even get to ears. And a lot of times it just filters you out. What I want you to do is target individuals. And how do I want you to do that? Well, the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to think about what are the organizations that I want to work at? Because those are the types of organizations I'm interested in. They're the type of organizations that have products and services I would be interested in building, accounting for, selling, marketing, or whatever you do, or helping the employees who do all of that, or recruiting for the employees, or managing the employees, or creating the entire HR structure for all the employees, or all the other stuff, or delivering the mail to the employees, whatever it is that you want. And I would target those types of organizations, but then there has to be an intersection between what is it that you want and what is it that you are able to do. And you need to find the intersection of how to showcase what you've done that's in alignment with helping the organizations you want to work for achieve their goals by overcoming their problems. And there has to be a need for this. And so you can do that irrespective of your background. So I mentioned I did a couple case studies last couple days. This woman last night who I worked with, who's a boot camper who got her job last year, I worked with her. She had a new business that she had created and was in the business for 6 years and did absolutely nothing, not even remotely close to what she had done as a corporate professional in alternative investments. And she opened up her own entrepreneurial organization, small business. It was 6 years old. And she didn't understand how all the things that she had done in her business applied to going back into the area that she had before she opened her business. And one of the things that I worked with her on, and she actually shares this in her story, is how to extract all the aspects of what she did and how to make it look like these are very valuable assets to help future companies achieve their goals. And so how you do that is going to be based on where it is you want to go, what you're going to pluck and cherry pick from your background, even if you're just changing companies but are going to use the same function, should be in relation to what those organizations want to achieve. Now, I want you to target people. And for those of you that go to the Andy School of Job Searching, you know I promote the Job Search Challenge. You can check that out free on my YouTube channel, or you can grab the Job Search Challenge product that we have that's a premium product, or you can join the Job Search Coaching Program where you can get the full product for free. Any which way, I want you targeting people, not systems. And so boss hunting is one of my favorite techniques. You can check that out on the YouTube channel, but that's the way I would go about that. And then the other thing is when you're networking, what a lot of people do is they get fired, they get laid off, or they're a stay-at-home parent re-entering the workforce, or they've been out of work a year, or they took a breather, or they traveled around the world, or they're a trailing spouse because the husband or the wife moved states or countries or whatever it is. And then what they do is they panic, and then they send out a message and just say, I'm out of work. Does anybody know of anything? Or if they don't send a mass LinkedIn message like that, they email their friends or text their friends or tweet them or fax them or whatever and say, I'm out of work. Do you know anything? That's not very good. Number one, it's very, very hard for your network to actually help you. And actually, one of the case studies, she said that I was reaching out to my network, but I wasn't helping them help me. They wanted to help me, but I was not instructing them properly so that they would get back to me quickly or with direct answers to what I ultimately needed. What solves that is a network map. Now, you can build a map by starting with, what is it that I want? Is there a company I want to go to? All right, what's the company? Is there somebody that you know that could get you to the company? I would call that person first before I called my best friend who knew no one at that company. I would try to call an acquaintance. Because why? Because you want to start with the end in mind. Where is it that I want to go and who can get me there? This is so critical because if you run your job search based on companies and not position, you'll know where you want to go. Then you can find somebody in the organization who can let you in, like a boss or a teammate, or if you have relationships inside the company, call that person first. If you know somebody who knows somebody, call that person to get an intro to somebody. But you want to map, you want to know where you're going and then who's going to take me there? It's like this for anything. If you want to speak at an event, maybe your industry has like a global conference once a year, they're looking for speakers. Well, I'm going to try to figure out who hires the speakers or who is getting the speaker volunteers or whatever it is for that event. I'm going to call them directly, or I'm going to call somebody who knows them, or I'm going to see if I know anybody who knows them or anybody that runs anything at that conference. Map who can get me there, and you go that route, and then you instruct the people along the way. Hey, I'm trying to get into Northern Trust. I'm trying to get into another big bank. Do you know anybody at JP Morgan, Northern Trust, this or that? Is much easier to network than, hey, I'm out of work. Do you know of anything? Next thing, as we transition into the interviews. If we transition into the interviews, what most people do is they prepare. They do so many things wrong. I could take 3 days and still not explain to you all the mistakes that people make when they prepare for interviews. But let's talk about the preparing part. First off, it's not about skills and it's not about questions they ask. It's not about skills and it's not about questions they ask. It's about information they need to know about the impact you're going to make in their environment so they can figure out if you're going to be a good employee for them based on what? They buy transformation. They don't buy skills or features. What do most people do? What questions are they going to ask me, and what story am I going to tell them to satiate them on what's my greatest weakness? And tell me about a time you had a disagreement, and what's your leadership style? Yawn. Those are terrible interview questions. And if you're prepping for your interview based on what you might get asked, it's a terrible way to get a job. So I want you to think about the impact you've made. Everything is a deduction. If she's telling me a story about how she did that and how she made that happen, she must have this skill, and this skill to pull it off. If one of the steps in the process is I had to put a business case together and pitch it to the management team, I'm just going to automatically assume you know how to put a business case together and you're persuasive. You can ring up inferred points by just showing them the steps and the impact. You follow me? Give me a show of hands. This is a super big deal. I can think 4 times faster than you can talk. So unless you want to bore me with the details and get me to yawn and shut down this, keep leading me. Keep leading me in a quick pace that makes me extrapolate all you had to do. Now, you might be thinking, well, Andy, if I don't explain to them chapter and verse, no, they don't want chapter and verse. If they don't know that you can do certain things, believe me, if they wanted more information, they'll ask you. What supersedes and trumps detail is talking about the impact you had and getting that out early, showing them you had a structured approach to resolving or implementing or attacking or whatever, giving them a minimal amount of detail for illustrative purposes only underneath each of the activities that fall in line with the result you made happen, which you already told them in the beginning. You led them to believe you were successful, and you also foreshadowed the exact result that occurred. And if you don't know how to tell a story this way, check out my video on the job search formula, guaranteed to get you hired. I talk about my CAR technique. It's context up front. There's a couple of parts that take you through an outline or an approach, and then the activities underneath that for each of the steps, and then you echo the result at the back end, so you're going to hit them with it twice. So this to me is a big deal. When you prepare, it's about what do I need to tell them that's going to show them I'm going to be able to help them achieve their goals by overcoming their problems. I want to know that in terms of the impact you've made, perhaps exact goals you've helped others achieve that look just like mine. And I want you to know the problems that I likely have because you've already encountered them. Right. So when you come to me and you need job searching help and you say, I'm a 47-year-old man in Germany and I'm in this field and we put resumes together this way, I've already solved that problem. I already know how to do that. I already know how to network in Germany because I've had dozens and dozens and dozens of Germans work with me to attain their job. So I've seen those problems. I've already handled them. You may have the same ones they have. You may be in the same field they have, but I guarantee you have 90% of the problems they had. That's what you're saying when you're telling a story in an interview about how you're going to go about doing something. Or if you're telling a story about your past, when we get into the interview, we talk about impact, you can bring these things up. So speaking of, it's a good segment. When you get into the actual interview, It's again about their needs. So any story that you're going to tell should start with a story about helping them achieve their goals. Use stories that they will very easily see how you're going to change my life, how you're going to change my team, how you're going to change my results, how you're going to help my customers, how you're going to get me compliant, how you're going to reduce my risk. Whatever it is that you do as a function, you need to be thinking in advance about what it is they need, what problems they likely have, even though you might not know specifically what problems they have, because you won't know specifically what problems they have until you get into the interview. Your stories and the preparation that you do should be aimed at what it is they need to hear based on the goals you know they have, the problems you think they likely have, whatever alerts you could get from the job description that highlight the things you're responsible for, the skills that they're looking for. All of that can be embodied. I helped a woman in HR the other day, and we were looking at a beautiful opportunity for her. And it covered just about every aspect you would want to touch in HR. There was strategy, there was leadership, there was development modeling, there were processes and compliance, there was systems, there was building high-performing teams, working with the business units. This is the whole array. So I didn't worry about, we didn't prep for her, and she didn't prep based on, well, how do you lead teams? No, we never would prep for a job interview that way. I said, okay, I saw the job description. Do you have a story? I asked her, do you have a story that talks about where you set the strategy up, how you rolled it out, how you helped the businesses build these high-performing teams by using these systems and so on? She says, yes. I said, that's how we're going to prep. We're going to work that story. Then there was another story. But you got to put yourself on offense, because no matter what questions they ask you, you're going to be able to tell them that story, because that story is what they need to know. It's not what they ask. It's what they need to know. You could back into that story any which way you want. Again, if you want more on this, check out that video I mentioned earlier. The next thing, I cannot get over. I would never, ever, ever waste a breath or a keystroke in my life. Ever. Why would you not thoughtfully put together an ongoing communication in the form of a thank you after your interview? Now, the thank you note, I have a thank you note that you can grab for free, or it's on page 83 of this book. And that's your opportunity to continue the dialogue. Now, at a minimum, send them a thank you email. Highlight why you're the best person for the candidate. Reiterate how interested you are in the role. You don't have to write War and Peace. Okay, just something short and sweet. And they might even get back to you, or they might not. And it's okay if they don't. But don't waste an opportunity for you to reiterate why you're the best candidate, not to mention thank them for their time, not to mention tell them how interested you are. Don't miss this step. Lots on the YouTube channel on that. And then the last thing I want to cover is make sure you negotiate. Now, in 99% of the scenarios, you should negotiate. Because in 99% of the scenarios, and this is somebody, I'm gathering my data from placing as an executive recruiter more than 600 people, negotiating 600 employment agreements, 600 salaries, bonuses, and all stock and all that. And as a career coach, over another 1,000 people who I've helped negotiate. We did a couple last week. I'm telling you, 99% of the time, you should ask for more money. Of course, I'm going to leave room for that small situation where it would be borderline insulting for you to ask for more money, depending on what the company did. But you should go armed, and you should make sure that you make the ask. Okay? So I want to buzz through these. Now, I want to reiterate what I just went through. What I just went through was an element of each of these areas. So we talked about getting your requirements in order. We talked about making sure that you've got a lot of good questions. Remember, if you grab the interview intervention book package, you get the interview intervention hardcover sent to your house. You get the ebook, and you get an audiobook, and I dump in an extra booklet called How to Interview the Employer, 75 Great Questions to Ask Before You Take Any Job. That's $7 US. It's a good deal. The ebook for interview intervention alone on Amazon is $9. When you market yourself with the resume, just make sure you're thinking forward, not backwards. When you're pitching and emailing them or cover letters or whatever, you want to highlight how you're going to transform their team, their company, their lives. When you're searching, remember, you're targeting individuals, not you're targeting organizations and individuals with those organizations, not systems. When you network, you want to have a map. When you're preparing, go on offense, not defense. Think about what do they need to know and what stories can I tell them that will show them how I'm going to transform their life. When you're interviewing, make sure you're doing the same thing. What are your goals? What are your problems specifically? And make sure that you are backing into what I call your power stories to make sure that they see you're the right person for the job. Don't ever miss an opportunity for continuing the dialogue via a thank you. And also make sure you are negotiating. All right, on this part of what I wanted to share with you today, that's a wrap on those 10 things. Make sure you grab the free booklet.